Wonderful. Hello, hello, and welcome, whatever time zone you happen to be in the world. So it might be a good evening, like it is here in Philadelphia. It might be a good morning. It might be a good afternoon, depending upon where you're dialing in from. If you are here to see the University of Pennsylvania's Master of Applied Positive Psychology program virtual info session, then you have indeed found the right place, and we are delighted that you're here. My name is Leona Brandwene. I serve as the Associate Director of Education at the Positive Psychology Center here at the University of Pennsylvania, and I am going to invite my team to introduce themselves too. So I'm going to go next to my colleague Laura.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Taylor. I serve as the project manager of education at the Positive Psychology Center. I'm also an alum of MAPP, and I'm delighted to be here. Tossing it over to Aaron.
Hello, thanks so much for being here. I'm Aaron Buchkowski. I'm the manager of education. I hope you find this session useful, and please put your questions in the Q&A. I'll be in there answering questions, and also Jaden, who I will turn it to now. Are you here, Jaden?
Hi, I'm here. My video is not working, but I am the administrative coordinator for the MAPP program. Very excited to be here with you guys. Please, yes, like Erin said, please send any questions in the chat, and we are here to help as much as possible. Thanks, guys.
Great. Akila, over to you.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Akila Abdulrahman. I'm a recruitment specialist for the College of Liberal and Professional Studies, and I work with prospective students to the MAPP program. Really happy to be here with you all and looking forward to your questions.
Fantastic. Okay, I think it's time for us to get rolling because I would imagine that you are excited to hear a little bit about MAPP. Let's just visit a few housekeeping items that will make our journey a little bit smoother here this evening. We are a collaborative classroom, and so we like to role model that during some of these sessions. We have two features that you can access. One is a Q&A feature, which you might have surmised is for questions. So if you have any questions about the program, please do put them in the Q&A feature. There's also a chat feature, which we'd like to use for something a little bit different. So we are actually going to invite you at this time to practice that a little bit. We'd like to get to know you. If you could, in the chat feature, let us know what city, if you're from the United States, what city and state. If you're from another country, what city and what country you are from. We would love to know who is in the room. So let's get that chat going. Oh my goodness. Wonderful, wonderful. So I would invite you all to have a look so you can get to know who else is sharing this space with you. We've got people who are ranging from as far east as New York and as far west as California in the US, and right smack dab in the middle in the heartland in St. Louis. Oh, beautiful. We've got folks who are here from Canada. We've got folks who are here from the Philippines, Hawaii. Beautiful, beautiful. Bogota, lovely. So welcome everyone, wherever you are from. It is delightful to have you here. And I would again encourage you to just have a little scroll through the chat because what is lovely about that and the wide-ranging number of people that are here is that it also is a little bit of a microcosm of what our classroom is like because we like to invite people from all over the world to join us in the MAPP community. Okay, let's roll up our sleeves and let's go ahead and get started. So in terms of an agenda today, we are going to cover these items. First, we'll talk just a little bit about positive psychology, just to make sure that you have some understanding and a little bit of a background on positive psychology. Then we will talk about the program and its design, as well as its faculty. We'll spend some time on our students so that you can get to know who might be in the MAPP classroom and whether or not you might see yourself in that space sometime in the future. We'll spend some time talking about our alumni who are extraordinarily important to our program. We have built a community that exists not only within our classroom, but outside of our classroom as well. And we can share with you some of the ways that we have been able to do that. And then, of course, we'll talk about admissions. If you are interested in joining the MAPP program, there are, of course, some gates that you have to go through in order to be able to do that. Okay, so let's roll up our sleeves and let's start with positive psychology. So I'm guessing if you are here, you might already know who this gentleman might be. So this is Martin Seligman, affectionately known as Marty here at the Positive Psychology Center. He is our faculty director here at the MAPP program, and he is one of the founding fathers of the entire field of positive psychology. So back in 1998, Marty was elected to be the president of the American Psychological Association. And at the time, he was feeling very troubled about the field of psychology and where it was headed. Psychology had done some extraordinary work in managing some of the major psychopathologies, and there were enormous returns and benefits that had come from that, with people being able to be treated for many of those psychopathologies from the research and treatment that had emerged from the field of psychology. But what Marty was really troubled by was that that's not all there was to life. And he, as a clinical psychologist, often remarked that he could work with a patient and help them to resolve their anxiety or resolve their depression. But after they got rid of what was wrong, they felt a little empty, and there wasn't so much there about what was right. And so Marty really theorized at that point that there's something, what he called north of zero. There's something more to life, and our lives become exciting and generative when we really emphasize not merely getting what's wrong in our lives, eliminating that, but to actually add the positives to our lives. So he and his colleague, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, wrote a seminal article in American Psychologist, that was back in 2000, where they proposed the field of positive psychology, which was the study of positive states, like some of the emotions that you might be feeling when you're feeling positive, right? Some joy, gratitude, maybe serenity. It also includes positive traits, right? So strengths of character that we might carry from situation to situation that are enduring ways that help us to navigate the world effectively. It also might include positive institutions or places where we can gather that through their conditions help to create a more positive environment. So Marty proposed that field to a resounding ovation, I'll say, at that American Psychological Association meeting, and the field of positive psychology was born. So what happened after that? Well, there were hundreds of researchers around the world who were really galvanized by this, and they came together. There was a lot of funding that then turned, right, from merely looking at the negative to also thinking about how do we study the positive, and how do we think about how we cultivate what's positive in people's lives more robustly. So there have been some international conferences that have occurred as a result of that. There's a burgeoning literature around positive psychology and many of the adjacent fields that fall underneath that umbrella of positive psychology. There have been professional applications of that research in education, in business. The field of coaching, of course, really orients around what is going positively in people's lives. The fields of medicine, law, and of course, psychotherapy. The first degree program in positive psychology was born. That was us. The University of Pennsylvania, we're very honored to have been that first master's program in positive psychology, and of course, the International Positive Psychology Association. In addition to that, here at Penn, we also created the Positive Psychology Center. So the Positive Psychology Center is really founded on 3 pillars. The Positive Psychology Center, of course, that central pillar is research, ensuring that the PPC is contributing to the robust literature in learning about what contributes to a robust and flourishing life. There's also a pillar around application and a pillar around education. And I'll give you a little bit of an idea what falls under each of those. So starting with research, some of the examples of what have emerged from the Positive Psychology Center include projects like the World Wellbeing Project, where instead of handing people surveys to understand their level of happiness, going and looking at the array of vocabulary that they post on social media in order to be able to understand their state of well-being. There is a primals initiative. So there are, it seems, universal ways that we have of looking at the world that might have profound impacts on our own well-being, whether we see the world as a safe place or whether we see the world as a dangerous place, whether the world is an enticing place that we want to go out and explore. Each of these are what we consider a primal, and our lenses on the world that help to shape how we think about our lives. We have a new project that's emerging that is in positive sexuality. That actually is a brand new $3 million+ grant that was just received by Dr. Vera Ludwig, who has joined us new as a scholar at the Positive Psychology Center. There's been work on transcendence with David Yaden, and of course the Humanities and Human Flourishing Project by our own director, who I'm going to speak about in just a moment, James Powelski. So these are a few of the ideas around what's happened in research. And then of course there's application. How do we take that research and then focus it on populations in order to improve their well-being? And so the Penn Resilience Program and Master Resilience Training are all examples of that. And then on the other side, you see education, right? And some examples of some of the educational work that we do out in the world include the Coursera courses, our foundation specialization in positive psychology, our applied positive psychology certificate, and of course, the Master of Applied Positive Psychology. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of a little bit of a background there, and we'll dive now into the MAPP program. I had mentioned the director of the Humanities and Human Flourishing Project is James Powelski. He's also the founding director of our program, and James has been with us for 20 years. He's a professor of practice here at the Positive Psychology Center, and he was who Marty tapped to get started with the MAPP program. So that first year, this is actually a picture of the class that first year, which was actually mind-blowing to Marty and to James, because their expectations had been managed to only expect 10 or 12 people, a handful more of that in terms of applicants who might apply to this new concept of a graduate degree in applied positive psychology. And they were overwhelmed with applications, of course. They got somewhere between 150 and 200 applications, and they were actually able to field an entire class. The classes have continued to be that size or larger over as time has rolled by. We celebrated our 10th anniversary of MAPP in 2015. This is a photo of some of our alumni who came back to enjoy that experience with us. And then, of course, this year we welcomed our 20th year of MAPP. This is MAPP 20, our traditional photo that happens in Houston Hall along the banister. We're delighted to have this class of 51 individuals who are with us. And I would also say coming soon is going to be in 2025. We'll be celebrating, believe it or not, our 20th year of MAPP. So that's going to be a major celebration that we'll have with our 21st class of MAPP, as well as our alumni who have just graduated. So perhaps you might want to join us for that celebration. Okay, you have heard enough from me. I would like to, turn things over to my colleague, Laura Taylor, who is going to talk to you about MAPP program educational design. Laura, over to you.
Thank you so much, Leona. Welcome, everyone. Again, we are encouraging you to use the Q&A for any questions as we go. Erin and Jaden are in there answering questions. And if you would like, you can also use the upvote feature. So feel free to do that if there are questions that arise. MAPP is extensive academic preparation in positive psychology during 1 calendar year of full-time study, which means you start in the fall semester and you have the fall, the spring, and the summer. 1 full year, but not starting in January. We start in the fall. We start in September each year. We're going to look at the theories and empirical foundations of positive psychology as we deeply consider ethical application for scholarly practitionership. And you would notice that this is a professional master's degree, which is going to enable you to become a scholarly practitioner in positive psychology in the area in which you are already an expert. So that is something that we're looking for as we look for our applications. This is not a licensure or credentialing, as the populations our students work with are by and large non-clinical populations, and they can range really broadly. We'll talk more about what a typical MAPP student looks like in a few minutes. But the intention is that our students will be applying and helping individuals to flourish, not just in a psychological context, but in any context where you find a human being, be that education, business, law, the arts, on and on and on. So specifically, some people ask year to year that is MAPP a research master's? And a very small percentage of our students elect to do a research capstone, but it is by and large not designed that way. Most of our students are, again, applying this work in their domains of expertise. So they're not intending to go on to a PhD. And yet there is a small percentage that will elect to take a different route. The capstone is the final culminating project in the MAPP educational design, and that is where you will dive into your personal area of application and help really bring that to life so that you can move forward beyond MAPP. Now, the model itself in educational design, MAPP is structured as a hybrid model, which includes a combination of both synchronous, on-site classes and asynchronous distance learning between on-sites. Our on-site classes are offered in two formats. They can either be in person on the Philadelphia campus or virtual, and that would be on our Zoom or virtual campus. They are still synchronous. So regardless of the format of delivery, students who are attending a MAPP on-site in either campus, in person or virtual, are in synchronous classes. Okay, hope that makes sense. The distance learning periods are between the on-site. So Leona's helpfully put up the on-site dates for the fall of 2025, which you can already find on our website. Please be sure to take note of those. But it may look like there's not much going on here with your study, but no, your full-time study, 4 courses each the fall and spring semester. So you will have distance learning periods between every single on-site. That is important when you're planning your schedules and thinking about how you want to prepare to be a potential graduate student in the MAPP program. All right, these it's going to look the same in the spring. Thank you, Leona, for moving right along, where you have 5 on-sites and they're alternating again between in-person and virtual campus with the distance learning periods between each of those on-sites. Then we will move on into the summer where you have the capstone. People ask about that summer semester. You are doing a capstone course. It looks like one course, but don't be fooled. It's a similar amount of work. So you want to continue to think of yourself as a full-time student, and you will be considered a full-time student for the entire calendar year. Now, one of the really wonderful benefits of the educational design that we have is that it permits students like potentially you to continue to working full-time. Now, you'll notice that little asterisk on the side, and that is because full-time in our estimation is approximately 40 hours a week, give or take. We are not suggesting that you should do full-time study alongside 60 or 80 hours of a professional commitment. It does importantly not require residency in Philadelphia. And in fact, many of our students hail from all across the globe, coming in to town for just the on-sites, which are on the Philadelphia campus. There are a total of 6 of those across the course of the year. So you would be traveling to campus for 3 in-person on-campus on-sites in the fall and 3 in the spring. All right, this really allows students to participate from all over the globe, and that is a wonderful aspect of the diversity of our student populations. We've had students as far as Europe, Africa, Asia, and Australia, and we hope and continue to encourage those applications. It enhances the educational experience by including student diversity, perspectives, and ensuring that we can have those really nuanced conversations that are going to have cultural influence and nuance across the different perspectives that come into our classroom. And it also enables participation of leading faculty from a variety of institutions to join our classroom. Here in this picture, you might notice a number of people you recognize. We have Martin Seligman, Angela Duckworth, Allison Mackey, James Pawelski, Claire Robertson-Kraft, Judy Salzberg-Levick, that's Karen Rivich next to her, and Jared Clifton. This is incredible because all of these instructors are right here at the University of Pennsylvania. We have an incredible resourced opportunity to offer you excellent faculty right here from the university. And also, because of our hybrid design, we get to welcome incredible guest lecturers from across the world who are coming in to expand your learning as a student in the Master of Applied Positive Psychology. They're coming in from areas of research such as moral psychology, community psychology, physical activity and exercise, as well as a variety of others. You might notice Barry Schwartz, whose specialty is in cognitive bias and decision-making, Jane Dutton and John Paul Stevens, who are working on high-quality connections and applications within organizations. We have Jacqueline Mattis, that's identity and well-being, Shige Oishi, the psychologically rich life. David Cooperwriter has been here for appreciative inquiry. Barbara Fredrickson on positive emotions. Paul Bloom and Jonathan Haidt, moral psychologists. Jane Gillum, who's working in positive education. John Rady, who's in physical health and well-being. Michael Boehm, who's in mindfulness meditation, and Amy Wisniewski in job crafting, to name a few. All right. So these guest instructors are really part of what makes our educational experience so rich and diverse. Now, The courses, you might be wondering, what kind of courses do I take as a MAPP student in the program? Well, everyone will take the same courses in the Master of Applied Positive Psychology program. And we're constantly refining and updating that curriculum in order to ensure alignment with the field as it progresses over time. So what we can guarantee is that you will have the best foundational education in positive psychology, and the courses for the academic year upcoming are going to look very similar to the courses that we're having our students in right now. The Introduction to Positive Psychology. This year has had Barbara Fredrickson, Edward LeMay, Richard Lucas, and Lal Unger. We've had our Research Methods and Evaluation course with Claire Robertson Kraft. If you're feeling a little bit nervous about statistics, don't worry, she's there to help you out, and she is someone who really helps us become scholarly practitioners of the work so that we can apply this work effectively in our domain of application. Of course, our founding director, James Pawelski, does the Foundations of Positive Interventions, and then our own Leona Brandwene on this call is the coordinating instructor for Perspectives on Wellbeing, so that we can really broaden beyond the perspectives that Marty so wonderfully has brought into our center and to this program, but ensure that you are really getting an education that includes the perspectives of the broader field through speakers like Michael Boehm, Jonathan Haidt, Jacqueline Mattis, Isaac Prilatinsky on community psychology and mattering, John Rady, and Barry Schwartz, who were mentioned previously. All right, in the spring, there are 4 more courses because you are full-time study for the entire academic year. And those look like applying positive psychology positive interventions in institutions. Again, coordinating instructor Leona Brandwene. You will look at some of those perspectives in organizations through David Cooperrider, Monica Warline, JP Stevens, Chris Feutner, Amy Wisniewski, or others. And then you will also have a service learning component to that particular course, which really helps you to understand what does it look like on the ground to be applying this work in an organizational setting. Then there's positive psychology in individuals with Judy Salzberg-Levick. And that course also invites guest speakers, Ryan Nemec, Gloria Park, David Yaden, to name a few. So that would help you integrate things like via character strengths, active constructive responding, performance psychology, and potentially awe, or how you might utilize that as something to enhance individual well-being. And then you've got the psychology of and the neuroscience of character with Allison Mackey. She is our neuroscientist on the faculty and a wonderful wealth of resource who has been looking at the development of the brain and how that can impact well-being, and how you can help educate someone across the lifespan, which as a scholarly practitioner who is wanting to apply this work, that can be a really valuable resource for you. And then of course, the humanities and human flourishing with our own Dr. James Pawelski, who's got additional guest speakers such as Angus Fletcher and Ken Pargament to help us not just think about the life that we want to be living, but how culture and the arts and other institutions impact that well-being, and how we can engage in that to have a broader perspective of inviting well-being for others. So, summer. And that's where we have the capstone project, that independent project that integrates what the student, has learned across all of the previous 8 courses in MAPP to advance the application of positive psychology in that personal area of interest and domain of expertise that you have to help us continue to expand the science and co-create the field together. So that is a lot of information. Let's take a moment to see how much of that you have digested. I'm going to just quickly adjust the chat so that you can now chat to everyone. And I'm going to invite you on a little pop quiz. Which of these are true? A, the University of Pennsylvania MAPP program was the first of its kind. B, the founder of positive psychology, Martin Seligman, still teaches a course in MAPP. C, one strength of the MAPP program is the diversity of its faculty. D, A and C, or E, all of the above. What do you guys think? Go on and pop it into the chat. Oh, a bunch of smarty pants in the room. Yes, indeed, it is E. That is correct. Thank you so much for playing our pop quiz number 1. Since you guys are on it and on a roll, we're going to go to another one. Which of these are true? It's going to get a little trickier this time. The term on-site means synchronous learning. That's A. B, on-site formats will alternate between our Philadelphia campus for on-sites 1, 3, and 5, and our virtual campus for on-sites 2 and 4. I can attend on-sites however I want. Of the 10 on-sites, there are 6 in person and 4 virtual. E is A, B, and D are true. All right, what do you guys think? Again, E. but it's not all of the above this time, because which one is not true? You cannot attend the on-sites in whatever format you wish. You need to attend them in the format of delivery, which does alternate, again, between those in-person, on-campus deliveries and the synchronous virtual delivery. All on-sites are synchronous. Congratulations, not to be fooled by the trick of our question. Well done. All right. Whew. Where are we? Let's see. I think that takes one more question, right? All right. One more question. Here we go. Most students continue to work full-time while attending MAPP. You can expect to spend approximately 25 hours a week on your work in MAPP. MAPP prepares students to apply positive psychology within their domain of expertise. D is A and C, and E is all of the above. What do you think, team? All right. Most of you have got it. That's amazing. Again, it is E, all of the above. And it is because perhaps I didn't actually articulate well enough that most of our students, based on the information that we receive from graduates of the MAPP program, are spending around 20 to 25 hours in the distance learning periods. And so you can expect to dedicate about 5 hours a week. That is going to vary a bit depending on your reading and writing style as a student. So know that the low end we've seen is like 15-ish hours a week, and the higher end, perhaps if English is a second language for you, or you need to brush off some of those writing skills, you might see a little bit more than that. But know that that is what we're asking you to commit to the program, is approximately 20 to 25 hours a week in MAPP during the program time. So if you find yourself as a MAPP student in the future and you're going beyond that, please do reach out to resources so we can ensure that you are well resourced and supported to be successful in MAPP within the range of expectation. All right. Thank you so much. I think it's time to turn it back to you, Leona.
Thank you. Thank you. So that was fun. We are about to, I was, thinking to myself, well, we've got some scholars who are in the room as I was watching the responses to our pop quizzes. So this is an opportunity for us to actually talk about some of the scholars who are in our room. If you have some questions as we are having this conversation about MAPP students, typical demographics and things like that, please do click on that Q&A feature because Erin and Akila and Jaden are manning that right now to ensure that we can respond to as many questions as we can. Okay, what is it like to be a student in MAPP? Well, that's a little bit of what it looks like to be a student in MAPP, and a picture may help to articulate 1,000 words for us, because as you look across these images, and I'd encourage you to study them just a little bit, you'll notice that nobody's asleep. Nobody is bored, chewing on their pencil, unsure of whether or not any of the information they're hearing is relevant to them. You'll see that these are students who are engaged. Some of them are smiling, right? There are moments in our class that are, of course, fun and exciting and engaging in a funny way, but often really what we really rely on is being intellectually stimulating. And I think you can see that across all of the faces that are in these photos. So what does it mean to sit in one of the seats in MAPP? Oops, I just went backwards. Sorry about that. Now I went forward. Sorry, team. Let's talk a little bit about MAPP student demographics. And I'm going to talk to you about diversity across a wide range of different issues. The first is diversity in terms of age. The youngest person who's ever come to MAPP was 21 years old when they entered our classroom. The oldest person who's ever come to MAPP was 70 years old when they entered our classroom. There has been, we actually just had a speaker who was talking about the remarkable time that we live in that enables our civilization to flourish through the intergenerational friendships that are created where we can learn from one another across generations. So we're excited to say that we can do that, of course, within the MAPP classroom. From a national perspective, of course, we have many students that hail from the United States, as you can see when you looked through the chat and saw some of the responses there. So I think we've had students that have come to us from every single state in the union at this point. And we also have been very fortunate to welcome students from over 35 countries around the world. So you can take a look at some of the countries that are represented there. Perhaps you see yourself on that list of countries that are represented. Perhaps you do not, in which case you might be the first person to join us from that particular country, and we would certainly welcome you. Laura, I was noticing that we're missing Antarctica on our list of continents that we welcome students from. So we're going to have to get on that.
We are.
And see what we can do to improve things. Okay, so that's a little bit about geographically where our students hail from. There's also a lot of diversity in our classroom in terms of the professions that they represent. Laura had mentioned that our students come into the classroom already bringing an area of expertise and experience that they from a field that they have been working in. Many of those fields, of course, are represented in our classroom concurrently. So you can see some of the demographics here from the field of health, everything ranging from physicians or doctors to nurses, public health educators. Up until this year, we would have only said an orthodontist on that list, but we've welcomed our first dentist this year, who's actually in our classroom right now, a pediatric dentist. From the field of education, we of course want to think about how we can create that double helix of both excellent academics and excellent flourishing well-being in our students. And so we have many people that come to us from the education field, including administrators and teachers, educational consultants, and others who we're delighted to welcome into our classroom. We have people that we welcome from the field of business, and that includes people who work in HR, which I think you would commonly say, oh, yes, of course, somebody who works in positive psychology would work in HR, but a whole bunch of other things too, right? Including venture capitalists, people who are in investment and banking, et cetera, people in the legal field as well. And then I want to just say, you know, all others, right? So we have people who are social workers, people who have been religious and spiritual leaders. I believe we've had 2 rabbis who have gone through the program. We welcome people who have been in political affairs or working in government. We welcome people who have been high achievers in sport, both athletes as well as performance coaches, journalists, etc. And we also welcome students into our classroom, if you remember that 21-year-old, who are recent college graduates or people who have graduated within the last 5 years. Again, we're trying to create conversations that are somewhat intergenerational in nature and help us to create some richness in our classroom. So we welcome people from all different walks of life to come in order to ensure that we can learn more robustly. As I had gone through some of those lists and you looked at, oh, the field of health, right? Law, education, business. I often say you can find people who can apply positive psychology anywhere that you can find a human being. Because who doesn't wish to be well? It's something everybody aspires to in our world. And by and large, our world improves by how many people are flourishing in it. Because flourishing people are agentic, they're generative, they're creative. They can work and collaborate with others effectively in order to solve major social problems. So it really does make a difference, we feel, in the world for people to be flourishing and creates a much better place. So here are a few images in our live classroom, and you can see people are engaged. These photos were actually taken in Huntsman Hall, which is one of our homes on campus. Laura had also mentioned that we have a virtual campus too, and I will share an image from that. This is actually MAPP 16. They actually went out and got team uniforms. Those t-shirts that you see are Orange Crush t-shirts because it's a very long story, but they really identified that they were Team Orange. And so they wanted to surprise us one day and showed up in all of their uniforms. And then there was another day that they showed up and decided to surprise us all with a note of gratitude. So whether we are in person or whether we are on Zoom, I'm sure that many of you have been on in Zoom experiences at work where you have been looking at your watch and waiting for it to be over. We try not to have those sorts of experiences in our classroom. classroom. So I'll share just one more picture of some of the folks who have come into our classroom and graced our class through working with us and helping us to understand their perspectives on positive psychology. So there are discussions that you could imagine in our classroom. There are presentations that our students do. We welcome people from all walks of life because it helps us to more fully paint the picture of what it means to be well and what it means to flourish. Our perspective, right, a very Western or US-based perspective, may not be the same perspective that somebody holds who's grown up in China. So we want to make sure that we are creating those sorts of diverse conversations because the education becomes so much better. Okay, so what happens then? They graduate on us and then they go out into the real world. So what happens when you're a MAPP alum and what can you do with a MAPP degree? Well, I had mentioned that our students come from all walks of life. They represent a number of different professions, and they're looking to fuse their education in positive psychology with the work that they are doing. I'll use one example. I actually just had a chat with one of our alums the other day. She's actually wrapping up her residency in medical school, and she actually started in MAPP doing her capstone on physician well-being, and then carried that into the work that she did in medical school. You know, unbelievably, she ended up presenting in grand rounds as a first-year medical student because people were so excited about the possibility that positive psychology represented in attenuating a major problem in healthcare, which is physician burnout. So our graduates can do many things with regard to MAPP degrees. Some of the folks that you see on this photo here, I'm just remarking, looking at Chad, who's there. Chad works for BetterUp, which is a large organization that's brought personal one-on-one coaching to employees and businesses to build their sense of passion and purpose. It's been very, very exciting work. Marty is standing there with Julia Poole, who actually just presented in our classroom the other day about the work that she is doing in helping teachers in high-risk urban environments to sustain their service instead of burning out and leaving the profession. So lots of things to do with a MAPP degree. Here are just a handful of numbers. I cannot promise these are all up to date. We pulled these from our MAPP Alumni Association website, but there are MAPsters who are business owners. There are MAPsters who are authors of books. We have MAPsters who write and produce articles that are both in popular press as well as peer-reviewed journals. Many of our MAPsters are leaders in their countries, and they are starting leadership organizations around positive psychology. So the list that you see here, including IPEN, the International Positive Education Network, PISA, the Positive Education in Schools Association, which is in Australia, the Canadian Positive Psychology Association, the Chinese Positive Psychology Association, the Colombian Positive Psychology Association, and the Japan Positive Psychology Association were actually all MAPsters had hands in all of those. So we're very proud of their leadership around the globe. Many of them also teach at the university level, which of course is exciting to us because they are then paying it forward and sharing their knowledge with the rest of the world. Our MAPsters also share their work via a site that we have at Penn called Scholarly Commons. Ben Franklin used to say that the best education should be both the instrumental and the ornamental, but particularly wanted to make sure that that education was shared with the world in order to make the world a better place. And so Penn has a website where they share the scholarly output of their students and of their researchers. This is just a quick image of, you can see the span of distribution of where some of our capstone projects have been downloaded over time. So our MAPsters work in a number of different ways. You can see panel discussions, poster presentations, group conversations and Q&A, and a variety of different perspectives and methods of delivery, including experiential exercise in our MAPP classroom. Okay, I am going to turn things back over to my colleagues because I want to go back to a question somebody had asked in the chat where they said, tell me about admissions. So now is the time for us to learn about admissions.
Absolutely. So you will notice that our applications are available on the website. So if you're thinking that maybe, just maybe, you are someone who would like to apply to the Master of Applied Positive Psychology program, you can do so. Those applications will importantly be due by the deadline, which is March 1st of 2025. And what are you going to be gathering to be able to submit a complete application for MAPP? You're going to need a resume. You're going to need an essay, which answers 4 questions that are detailed both on our website and in the application portal. You're going to need 3 letters of recommendation. And I would encourage you to have those letters be professional references. Some people may be coming out of in particular situations where they don't have like a manager. So it could be someone who's been a teacher for you, or former professor from your undergraduate degree if you're close to your undergraduate experience. It could be perhaps somebody for an organization in which you volunteer, or a community in which you've had some leadership. So it doesn't have to be your formal manager or supervisor in a particular paid work environment. We think expansively around that, but it should probably not be your mom either, because we're guessing that your mom's pretty biased. Okay, so that is something that we would recommend. And then all of your transcripts. When I say all, I mean all. So if you were a person who took summer classes at 6 different institutions across 20 years to finalize your bachelor's degree, that's awesome. We're fine with non-traditional undergraduate degree completion, and we're still going to ask for every single one of those transcripts. So if it is an undergraduate transcript or a graduate transcript, doesn't matter to us. If you took it at an institution where you received credit for that course, please submit your transcript. Okay, transcripts that are from outside of the United States will need to be evaluated by World Education Services in a course-by-course evaluation so that they can meaningfully be reviewed by our admissions panel, because we don't happen to speak all of the languages of the world and we don't necessarily understand how much credit you would have received for a particular thing. So that is the servicer that Penn contracts with to ensure that we're doing things equitably and ensuring that we are reviewing in a fair process across all international applicants. So thank you in advance for doing that, and know that it can take a little time to gather those documents and get a translation of your transcript. So we would encourage you to start that before the deadline. Definitely early. I would give it at least a month, if at all possible. The GRE. So the GRE is required if your bachelor's was earned later than spring of 2022, the spring semester. So if you graduated in summer of 2022, yes, you need the GRE. If you graduated in winter of 2022, no, you do not need the GRE for this particular application cycle. So that spring 2022 is the cutoff for the GRE for this application cycle. And if English is not your native language, we'll need to ensure that you are ready to have an experience in an English environment where is advanced learning. So we're going to ask for a TOEFL or IELTS score. You can see our minimum scores on the website. Every year we are asked, can I get a waiver for this? Can I get a waiver for that? I'm going to tell you right now, completing a degree in the United States in English does not qualify you for a waiver. I'm going to repeat, completing a degree in English in the United States does not qualify you for a waiver for the TOEFL or IELTS. You will hear that again if you ask us. So you can, if you need to, and very, very, very rarely do we waive that requirement. We strongly recommend that you take the TOEFL or the IELTS, do really well, and show that admissions committee the strength of your English language so it is not a question. All right, next slide, please. Once you've submitted your application, it's going to be marked submitted in the portal. Now, our admissions committee will go through and they'll review, and then once all of those boxes are checked and they've reviewed, yes, you have your letters of recommendation, yes, your essay is in, yes, your resume is in, yes, we have your transcripts. Once all that boxes are checked, you'll notice your application is marked as complete. Now, in order for your application to go to review, it must be marked complete. Submitted applications are not considered complete until they are marked as complete by the team in the application portal. They will reach out to you if there are any outstanding documents or any questions that they have to ensure that we're doing our best to support you in the process of completing your application, but you are responsible for monitoring the status of your application, okay? So please do log into the application portal even after you've submitted things to check it out so you can have that status update and be notified. Also, all decisions for the MAPP program will be released by the end of June each year. So they're due by March 1st and all decisions are released by the end of June. You will receive an email from the application when it's complete. You'll also receive an email to notify you when your decision is available to view in the portal. That way, you can get some communication and you don't have to hit refresh all day, every day as you watch your application go through the process. So that is important to note about that. And another question that often comes up in this particular time of year and process is how do I think about funding my degree? So Leona, if you could kindly go to the next slide. Awesome. We do offer two scholarship opportunities. One is the Christopher Peterson Memorial Fellowship, which is offered to an applicant that is accepted to MAPP each year. In order to apply for that scholarship, you must first submit a completed MAPP application and then submit a supplementary application by March 15th. You can find details on our website. If you live in Hong Kong and work in education, you might be eligible for the Beijing Tang. So check out that. People have come to MAPP on Rotary or Fulbright scholarships. There are veteran and military benefits that you might be able to use if you have a history in that, or other employer nonprofit tuition benefits that may be something that you can utilize towards your degree. There are federal loans available for graduate education if you are a citizen of the United States, and we would encourage you to commit to go on and complete a FAFSA online as you complete your MAPP application if you are intending to use graduate loans to pay for that. And then if you're admitted, you'll be notified by the Student Financial Registration Services, and they will help walk you through ensuring that you have the financial package you need. In addition to federal loans, there are some opportunities for Grad Plus loans that could take you to the full cost of the degree if you are eligible for those. The federal loans do not have a credit check. There's the word. The federal loans do not have a credit check, but the Grad Plus loans do. So just to be aware of that. And then, of course, if Aaron or Jaden would be willing to put the scholarships document into the chat, we have had a number of people find other resources that help support their graduate education over the years. And so we've collected a few of those in a Google document that might be useful to you. We encourage you to be creative where you look. Myself, as an alum, I was able to find a partial scholarship through my union when I was working as a professional theater artist at the time. So you never know unless you ask. Be creative. All right. That is scholarships and financial aid. And then we're mindful that you probably still have questions. And we did it, Leona. We still have time for questions within the webinar. So I'm very proud right now that we're
I'm very proud too. So I've noticed, and so sorry, I've been trying to keep up. There have been a couple of questions that have come over into the chat. If you did not get your question answered in the chat, please just cut and paste it over into the Q&A. I know that Aaron and Jaden and Akila have been answering a lot of questions in the Q&A, and you may even be able to find the answer to your question because it may have been upvoted there. Okay, I am going to pause here. Laura, Jaden mentioned that somebody asked if we could please share what our capstone projects were about. Would you like to go first?
Certainly, I'd be happy to. So my background, as I just mentioned, was in theater. I was a professional theater artist who toured the country for 15 years as a member of Actors Equity Association, and I was an arts educator. So when I wrote my capstone, I was really interested in how we could advance positive psychology for a particular population. And I took the lens of developing resilience so that we could think about how to cultivate creative minds in a very difficult but rewarding business that is the arts. We have a lot of artists who are trained in their craft and a lot of artists who are trained in the well-being strategies that might help support longevity in the field of the arts. So that was really something that I'm still passionate about. I work with nonprofits now in that space, but my capstone in particular was cultivating resilience through the lens of character strengths and I was utilizing particular acting techniques so that we could turn the lens of character development on oneself to cultivate well-being. That's the shortest answer I can give you. All right, Leona, on to you.
Awesome. So I'll say I'm going to age myself a little bit when I talk about my capstone. When I was in MAPP, Marty had mentioned that one of the things that he was most disappointed about was the poor breadth and penetration that positive psychology had had in corporate spaces and in workplaces. And it niggled at me for a long time. And so I actually wrote my capstone. My background is actually, prior to the work that I did in healthcare, was actually in employee health promotion. And so the capstone that I wrote was about differentiating between dollars saved, which is the focus of a lot of employee wellness and employee well-being programs, is how many dollars you're saving by reducing healthcare costs by helping people to remain healthier. But that's not as compelling, frankly, to the C-suite, right? And to the chief financial officer, because they like the other side of the ledger. They like to see increases in revenue. So I was actually proposing that positive psychology would actually be a higher leverage intervention on that side of the ledger, because by creating flourishing and generative populations in workplaces, that those workplaces would then go on to be more successful. I'm actually delighted to report that there's some research that's come out of the UK in the past 2 years that supports that. John Emmanuel Deneve has actually done some work looking at employee well-being using 4 questions and measuring the performance of different organizations, both in terms of their stock performance, but also in terms of their revenue performance. And it seems that it actually is true that there is a very strong correlation between employee well-being and those organizations that are flourishing most in terms of their revenue, sales, and stock prices. So that was a little bit of what I focused on. Okay, I am not sure that I'm getting the chat is going very quickly, so I'm not sure I'm getting everything. Erin, Akila, and Jaden, are there some questions that you are seeing that we have not answered live that you would like for us to answer?
All right, I'm furiously typing. Um, we do have a few questions in here. So, um,
I'm seeing one about, is there anything about an application that will help it stand
yes,
out?
I think that's a good one.
Is that a good one, Erin? All
Yeah,
right.
I was going to highlight the same one.
Are there any tips or suggestions that can be offered to applicants that may not have a psychology background in their undergrad or in general? Well, good news. We do not require a psychology background from an undergraduate degree or in general to apply to the Master of Applied Positive Psychology program. And I would say the common thread that pulls all of our Mapsters together in the classroom is their desire to apply positive psychology and make the world a better place. And that's going to look different for every single person that comes through. Um, Maybe you have a particular vision. That application is going to ask you to articulate your vision for the future, for the application of positive psychology. And that is really, truly the heart of your application. So please do spend some time on it. Please do answer all 4 questions. Don't skip a question. That's a hot tip. Don't skip a question. um, Answer all 4. And if you're aligning your vision for positive psychology with the skills and strengths of your background and the expertise that you bring into the world at this stage in your career, wherever that is, that's going to be a strong applicant. Leona, would you like to say anything else?
Thanks, Laura. So 2 things. It's not necessarily more, but a +1 on 2 things that you've said. So first is to really be honestly and accurately represent yourself. I think sometimes we can look at applications as something where we need to game the application in some way, right, in order to make us attractive to get into a particular space. The most compelling application is the one with somebody who wishes to serve the world and is honest and clear and develops a compelling and feasible vision around that. That is really what makes an application stand out. So I would encourage you to be yourself and the best version of yourself in the application that you put forward, because that is who is going to take the learnings from positive psychology out into the world and helping to make the world a better place. The second thing I'd like to do a +1 on is exactly that. So Laura had mentioned that while we have a lot of diversity in our classroom, the unifying factor across the board is that the students who come into our classroom are pro-social and looking to serve the world in some way and change it and make it a better place. I'll say that it's not just the students, it's the staff, it's the faculty, it's the visiting faculty, it's the alumni. And so that really is a part of what makes the MAPP community an exciting place. When you have people who are together, who all share a common vision and all are really motivated and excited to making the world a better place, it creates this extraordinarily generative community that is just an exciting place to be a part of. So, so many people say to me, you know, what really makes the experience in the MAPP classroom special? There are a lot of ways to answer that question because I think that there are a lot of ways that we are a really special community. But if I were to collect up all the things like the sense of community, the connection with faculty from around the world, shared vision from everybody who comes together, all of that I think bubbles up and creates this sense of expansiveness and possibility that's frankly intoxicating. And it's exciting to be a part of because it helps people to then generate the new ideas that we need to solve some of the most compelling problems that are facing our world today. So we do really take our mission seriously of trying to create 51% flourishing in the world by 2051. And so you all are a part of that when you come into our classroom because we all are putting our efforts forward into creating that mission and making that vision a reality. Okay, I'm stepping off my soapbox. So sorry. Okay. Let's see. Do we have other questions that we should answer while we are here?
I saw another good one that I thought would be good to talk live. Oh, how do you work with your students' individual interests for their career pathways since everyone takes the same courses?
Great. So I will say that there's a combination of ways that that works. One is while everyone is taking the same courses, we structure the syllabus design and the assignments in a way that enables people to think about how they're applying some of that work in their own context and in their own domain that they're looking to facilitate flourishing. So there will be some assignments that you have that we have very specific pedagogical goals around your comprehension and ability to learn and integrate certain information. And we also deliberately build in flexibility that enables you to take that and then be able to adjust that and think about applications in your own space. I'll also say how much gets shared and learned through the cross-pollination between students that do not share the same profession. So much of what was done with the military and the Penn Resilience Program came from the field of education. Specifically, even thinking about starting with teachers first, right? Because they have a strong scope of influence. And when they are flourishing, they tend to create flourishing amongst the populations that they serve. So in the military, in professional sports, et cetera, many of those learnings that have been harvested from that environment have been operationalized in other environments with good effect. So I don't wish to say, right, that if you are in the field of medicine, right, that you should only be taking classes that are related to medicine because that's the only place that you can learn. So many of our students talk about how enriching it is to actually do that, engage in that cross-pollination with other students who are from different fields, because that actually raises the learning to a higher level. Laura, do you want to add on to that?
I will just also say that you will have access to incredible assistant instructor feedback throughout your time as a MAPP student. And that individualized feedback is part of what helps you attune all of that work. So just doubling down on the many, many ways that that happens in the classroom, but also in the feedback that happens and in the structure of the assignments. And there's some journaling assignments to help you reflect on that that are very specific. So lots of things that are present in the educational design to ensure that you have the flexibility to apply this in a meaningful way to you.
Brilliant. Okay, I am looking at the clock and I recognize that we have about 30 seconds before we turn over to being 6:30, and we want to make sure that we are ending on time for you. So to close out a little bit, first I want to say thank you to my colleagues for being with us today and helping us to share so much about this program that we genuinely love deep in our hearts, because we feel as though it really is making a difference in the world. And I want to thank all of you for joining us, because I know that your time is valuable and you've been very generous with your time to come and learn with us today. Let's say that perhaps you might have today, learning about the MAPP program, seeing yourself in the MAPP classroom, right? Where you can see the possibilities and see how that degree can be used by you to in turn become a part of that shared vision and creating more flourishing in the world. If you have that little flame in your heart, right, where you are thinking about how you can improve flourishing in the world, we welcome your application. So please think about reaching out to us. You can see our website there, penpositivepsych.org. That includes the information related not only to the Master of Applied Positive Psychology program, but our undergraduate Applied Positive Psychology certificate and our foundation specialization, which is on Coursera. We are accepting applications right now, and we are going to be accepting them through March 1st, as Laura had articulated earlier. We welcome your questions. I know that there were some specific questions that were in the chat that we weren't able to get to. Please, please, please do reach out to us. We're happy to chat with you about your unique situation, learn a little bit more, and help you to think about whether or not the MAPP program might be a good fit, or alternatively, how you can navigate some challenges you may be having with your admissions application. So with that, I want to again extend an enormous thanks to my team, an enormous thanks to all of you for being with us here today. We wish you a flourishing remainder of the day and week, and are grateful to you for coming to learn a little bit more, again, about this program we love so much, the Master of Applied Positive Psychology. Wishing you well, be well, and we hope to see you in the future. Take good care.